As a Mexican moving into America with my lovely wife and two kids, life wasn't a smooth taco ride. Between the endless paperwork, cultural barriers, and trying not to butcher every other English idiom, we finally landed a place to call home, a charming little house in a gated HOA neighborhood called Whispering Cedars. I had worked hard, really hard, cleaning offices at night and managing a construction site during the day just to provide a better future for my children. And now here we were. Decent neighbors, lush green lawns, smiling joggers waving in the morning. It all looked perfect on the outside. Even better, I had landed a job within the same HOA, helping with groundskeeping and some admin work. That's how I met her, Karen Mendoza, the self-declared queen of the HOA board. My first encounter with her was when I went to submit some onboarding documents to the office. She didn't even look at me, just took the papers, stamped them like a robot, and slid a laminated rule book across the counter like it was radioactive. No welcome, no handshake, not even a smile. Just make sure you follow every word in there. This isn't Mexico. That one hit deep, but I smiled politely and walked away, figuring maybe she was having a bad day. Turns out that was just her personality. And weird enough, I found out the next morning she was my next door neighbor. Great. While everyone else was waving or dropping off brownies to welcome us, Karen just stared at me from her porch like I had dragged my muddy boots across her bloodline. She had a permanent scowl, a clipboard glued to her hand, and seemed to catalog every breath I took. The passive-aggressive tension was constant. My kids accidentally dropped a ball into her yard. She threw it in the trash. My wife planted sunflowers. Karen said they violated color codes. Once I parked slightly over the edge of my driveway, she left a typed note on my windshield in bold red font. But I kept my head down, worked hard, and focused on my dream of owning a Rolls Royce. I wasn't about to let one bitter neighbor ruin what I had built with my sweat and dignity. It was a calm Saturday morning when I finally decided to open the laminated HOA rule book Karen had slammed onto my desk the day we met. The thing felt like it had been printed by a paranoid dictator. Bold fonts, highlighted lines, and excessive underlining. I flipped through the pages until 3 rules caught my eye and made me laugh out loud. Rule number 1, no lawn gnomes after dusk. All decorative lawn gnomes must be brought indoors by 7 p.m. nightly. Glowing eyes are strictly prohibited to avoid misidentification by security patrols. Who even patrols this place after dark? I had only ever seen squirrels and the occasional confused Uber driver. Rule number 2, driveway ban for HOA cars. Any vehicle owned by an HOA board member must be parked in the street's driving lanes, not in the driveway, to promote community togetherness. That one felt weird, but I didn't pay much attention. My car was barely an idea at the time. Rule number 3, reverse mailbox rule. Mailboxes may be installed upside down to encourage creative postal sorting. There was even a clause that warned, don't blame the HOA if your mail ends up in someone else's chili coupon. Luckily, my family in Mexico doesn't send letters, and bills go straight to my email. A year passed, and though I worked inside the HOA office itself, Karen still treated me like a suspicious outsider. Every interaction was cold, clipped, and calculated. Once I tried to make peace. I knocked on her door with a warm plate of cookies my wife had baked. Karen opened the door, stared at the cookies, and said, with a curled lip, "I don't eat your kind's food." Before I could blink, she slammed the door on me. I let it go. I had bigger things on my mind, like finally buying my dream car. And I did. A midnight black Rolls-Royce Spectre, polished to reflect the whole damn sky. I threw a party the night it arrived. Music, dancing, friends, pure joy. I even invited Karen as a peace gesture. She showed up with her infamous clipboard, turned off the music, and yelled that I was violating the no loud gatherings after 8 p.m. clause. Then she handed me a violation notice. "You've broken rule number 2. She hissed, pointing at my car barely touching the driveway. Yet, Mr. James hosted a party 2 weeks ago with Karen dancing to 80s pop. Hypocrisy never looked so smug. A week passed after the party. I went back to work, back to my life, still enjoying the sweet hum of my Rolls-Royce Spectre. The car had become a small celebrity on the street. Neighbors waved, kids smiled, and even Mr. James joked about trading his pickup. But one person never looked amused. Karen. Every morning she glared from her porch like my car personally insulted her ancestors. She started snapping photos of it daily, warning me over and over that my parking habits were going to ruin the HOA's reputation. I stopped listening. Then one Monday morning, I opened the front door and nearly collapsed. My heart sank to my stomach. The Rolls-Royce was a wreck. The windshield was shattered. Long streaks of bright red spray paint covered the body. Words like illegal, rule breaker, and go home scrawled across the hood and doors. The tires were slashed. I froze. My wife screamed. My kids peeked through the curtains, confused. I thought it was a robbery or hate crime. Within minutes, neighbors crowded around, some offering help, some just shocked. Then came Karen. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't act concerned. Instead, she stood at the edge of her lawn, dialed 911, and reported me, said I was causing a disturbance in the neighborhood, said I was making a scene. When the police arrived, she marched up to them like some self-declared deputy and told them I was probably involved in some shady business, even hinted at gang activity. Before I could explain, I was handcuffed right in front of my family. At the station, I tried to stay calm. I explained everything, even showed them HOA documents proving I was employed and lived in the neighborhood. Still, suspicion hung in the air like a fog. Until I remembered. Our home security system. Tiny cameras installed near the garage, nearly invisible. I told the officers. We returned to my house and I pulled up the footage. What we saw left no doubt. Karen. At 2:30 a.m., hoodie, gloves, and a can of red spray paint. She moved like a shadow, smashing my windshield with a brick, laughing to herself as she tagged the car with slurs and slogans. She even looked straight into the camera at one point. When confronted, she didn't deny it. He broke the rules, she said, arms crossed. I took action. That was it. I was done being quiet. I filed charges. She messed with the wrong guy. Taking Karen to court felt like setting off a fire alarm in a building filled with gasoline. The moment news broke, my neighbors, those who once tiptoed around her, started showing up at my door with stories, screenshots, even dated photos of Karen's past rule enforcement. I compiled every single one. But I didn't stop there. I created a petition to have her removed from the HOA board entirely. Within 48 hours, over 70 neighbors signed it. Some even came by just to say, finally. The courtroom was packed. Karen strutted in like she was walking a red carpet, her smugness practically steaming off her shoulder pads. She brought the infamous rule book, slammed it on the judge's desk, and pointed dramatically. He broke rule number 2. HOA cars must be parked in the driving lane, not in the driveway. Her voice echoed with confidence. But the judge raised an eyebrow. Rule number 2? That's when my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Rochelle, stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that this rule doesn't exist in any official HOA documentation approved by the board. She handed the judge a binder. 3 days of testimony followed. Karen doubled down, insisting the rule had always been there. She even claimed I forged newer versions of the HOA guidelines. But the HOA president, yes, her own boss, testified under oath that no such rule had ever been approved. We have no policy requiring HOA board members to park in traffic lanes, he said, flatly. That was never in the records. She made it up. I suddenly remembered something. My first day at the HOA office, Karen had intercepted me before I could even meet anyone else. She'd heard me on the phone with my wife, talking about the dream car we were saving for. And the next morning, she handed me that rule book. She wrote it herself, just to sabotage me before I even had the chance to succeed. Karen's face turned sheet white as the judge ruled in my favor. You fabricated HOA laws. You vandalized personal property. This court finds you guilty. She was fined $100,000 in damages. My insurance covered most repairs, but I still got the payout. The HOA fired her that same afternoon. She lost her board seat, her job, and eventually her house trying to pay me off. Last I heard, she's renting a tiny place near a farm, working as a janitor in a strip mall. Me? I got my driveway and dignity back.